So the question was whether North Africa could play some of that role. Gaddafi certainly thought they could. That was his goal, was to sort of have Libya be the sort of leader in Africa. To me, it's a bit unclear what sort of the relationship will look like going forward, just because a lot of the new governments in North Africa are still ill-defined, or we don't know exactly where things are going to go, and whether there will be leaders that will explicitly take the stance that Gaddafi took and say, look, we're all Africans and we want to collaborate closely across the Sahara on different projects. So I think to me it's a bit of an open question. I'm not sure. Okay, so we've talked about these three factors, and I just want to do the redux again on the clicker. So if you can turn your clicker on, let me start the clicker session, which I haven't done. Okay, so I'll put the slide back up. Oh no, this isn't it. Sorry. Let's get to the right clicker question. Okay, so here it is. We talked about these three factors, and now we've actually discussed them. I got your view sort of when we started about which of these is most important. Agricultural productivity, disease, or transport costs in determining the sort of geographic factor that affects African development. So why don't you click in and we'll compare the answers this time to last time. Oh, shoot. Broke off, yeah. Okay, let me just go another couple seconds and we'll take a look. Okay, so the distribution this time is about, I guess, 27%, 2020, and then 32. Okay, that's kind of interesting. So last time, there was a little more in agriculture and disease, but it seems like now people are convinced that all these can be pretty important, so more people chose D. You have still time to click it out. Sorry, no, you missed it. I know. Well. Okay, great. So I think maybe people are more convinced that all these are pretty important. So I want to turn to health now and talk about health in a little bit more detail. And first, I want to talk about whether we can pin down what the impact of health is, and then I want to turn to the question related, the distinct question of, if we know that health matters, can we figure out why? In other words, what the mechanism is. And what I'm doing with this discussion here is anticipating a lot of what we're going to discuss over the next couple of weeks when we talk about other types of studies, really microeconomic studies of health, schooling, and productivity. But first lay out some of the conceptual issues and methodological issues. So this is a very difficult problem. Why is it difficult? Well, you might think, and this is sort of implicit in Bloom and Sachs' story, you might think at first it's straightforward. People that are sick are unproductive. If you're unproductive because you're weak, you're sick, you have malaria, you have fever, very high morbidity, you're just not going to be as well off. You just can't work as hard, you can't work as effectively. But there is an alternative theory, very standard alternative economic theory, that we can't ignore. What if income comes first? Everybody knows if you have more income, you can buy more of everything. If you buy more of everything, you can buy more healthcare, you buy more of the drugs you need, more of the food you need to be healthy, etc. So it's going to be clearly the case that better off people have a better chance of being healthier, so they can access more healthcare. So there's two plausible theories, one running from health to wealth and one running from wealth to health. How can we disentangle these? Bloom and Sachs say, look, Africa's poor and Africa's unhealthy. Well, maybe they're unhealthy because they're poor. Maybe if they were richer, they'd be able to invest in the public health systems that would allow them to be healthy. The U.S. South used to have lots of malaria. When the U.S. got sufficiently wealthy in the 20th century, they started undertaking public health campaigns and swamp drainage campaigns to get rid of the breeding grounds for the mosquitoes, etc. And all that reduced malaria. In the case of the U.S., it was wealth first, and then health followed wealth. Maybe it's just the same thing in sub-Saharan Africa. More generally, and this is where we're going to start thinking in a little bit more abstract way and getting closer to a regression, which we may get to by the end of class today, but it's not definitely Tuesday. How do we interpret a correlation between two variables? So in this case, imagine country income and country health measures. It could be individual level income and individual level health measures. Let's say that correlation is positive, like health and income. How do we interpret that? So one interpretation that's consistent with that correlation is higher A causes higher B. The correlation is positive. In other words, health improvements allow you to work more, be more productive, and gain more income, earn more income. So that's one theoretical approach, one theoretical perspective, one hypothesis. The other is the reverse. B causes A. In other words, income causes health, or wealth causes health. These are things we're going to try to disentangle. Economists or econometricians call this endogeneity. Endogeneity is when the outcome variable, what you think of as your outcome variable in your regression, is actually causing your explanatory variable, rather than the other way around. Or people call it reverse causality. Same thing, endogeneity. The third possibility is that both are going on. So 1 and 2 are both true. A reinforces B, B reinforces A. And in some models, that process of feedback can actually lead to like a very different equilibrium because these two forces sort of reinforce each other. Again, that's not implausible here. And this sort of simultaneous mechanism is the conceptual underpinnings of models of what are called poverty traps. So people sometimes talk about health poverty traps or nutrition poverty traps. People who are sick can't earn much money because they're sick. But because you can't earn much money, you can't buy the medicine or the food you need to get healthy. So you stay sick and you stay poor, and things get worse and worse. Or the opposite could occur. I'm healthy, so I earn money, so I can buy healthcare and food, and I stay healthy. So the overall effect is more than some of its parts, theoretically, potentially, in some of these models. So again, this would be simultaneity. The fourth explanation, this is a very important one in modern empirical work in economics and in social sciences in general, is the possibility that actually the correlation is spurious, and A and B are correlated not because A causes B or B causes A, but they're both being driven by some third factor, C. So in the case of health and wealth, what do people think that factor could be? We see that lots of African countries are poor and have bad health measures, but European countries are rich and have good health measures. What would the third factor potentially be? Okay, so tropical geography, something about climate, temperature, tropical geography can both lead to low productivity and bad health without the health and the productivity really affecting each other, just so they're both affected by these climatic factors. So tell the story. How would that work? Yeah, so more educated people earn more. More educated people have better skills, they get better jobs, but at the same time they're better able to take preventive behaviors and the sort of behaviors that reduce health risk. Yeah. The quality of government institutions. Explain the logic there.
So government could invest in
So imagine, democratic, well-functioning democratic institutions that are really working to improve well-being for the population, both take lots of policy measures that promote economic growth and make people richer, but also take public health measures. And actually, health and income don't affect each other, they're both a reflection of good policy. Yeah. How that works?
So people get very much all that vulnerable and all that, like money and investment income. So there's higher income sick and all that. If you're feeding it, you're going to be more poor.
So you're thinking of sort of fewer resources because of the family size making families poor, and somehow the family size also affecting health, maybe more transmission of disease within the family, something like that, or? Yeah. It is true having young kids in the family makes you sick. I have a little fever and a cold right now, and it's because of those rascals you see on the slide. Okay. Yeah. 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 The debate on population development is not settled. And, we're not going to focus on it too much this term, but there are many people making the claim made here, which is, when you have limited resources, more population does lead to more poverty if there's enough land to go around, et cetera. But others take a different view, and it may depend a lot on what resources are available and what population density is to start with. Maybe from a very low population density, bigger families and more population density could be to greater per capita income. So, Sarah. So there could be social constraints or social hierarchies, caste systems, other things that, that we could think of as social institutions that determine people's outcomes in various dimensions, like income, health, et cetera. Okay. So people have raised some good points. This is what economists call omitted variables. So C here is the omitted variable. It's the variable that's like doing the work, but that we haven't considered in this correlation. In other fields, like in biostatistics, et cetera, they call this confounding. C is the confounder. So that's just a lingo, but it's the same thing. Okay. Another reason why we might have a large correlation could just be by chance. It might just be, for some fluky reason, these two variables are correlated in the data, but there's really no relationship between them. Like one in a million or something, the correlation goes that way. We're not going to focus too much on explanation 5 just because the whole point of having standard errors and confidence intervals is to give us a sense of what outcomes are likely by chance rather than due to some real relationship. So we're not going to focus on this much. When we find a relationship that's statistically significant, we're going to take it seriously because statistical significance tells us this is very unlikely to happen by chance in your data. Let me pause for a second. What are some other interpretations of that correlation? Or is there another story that isn't even up there on 1 to 5? Or another way to interpret one of those bullet points? Yeah. That's basically what it means. If the data sort of has the structure we assume with normally distributed errors and independently distributed errors and whatnot, then basically 1 out of 20 results that are significant, if there's no relationship at all in the data, 1 out of 20 times we would say there's a significant relationship, just by chance. That's what it means. That's what it means. So 1 out of 20 isn't too bad, but it's not 1 out of 100, right? So we could set our significance level at whatever we want. For some reason, I don't know the intellectual history of it, people have focused on 95% confidence. 90% sounds pretty good. 99, it's just, again, people like round numbers, 5. So there's like a p-value of 0.05. You have 5 fingers, so 5 sounds good. If we had 6 fingers, it'd be a p-value of 0.06 or something. I guess, everything is in multiples of 5 or 10 because we have 5 fingers. I mean, I'm not even kidding. That's why our number system goes from 1 to 10, right? Because people can count and go, okay, 10. Now what do I do? Toes. Anyway, yeah. So that's a great point. We're going to come back to it a few times during the term, which has something to do with data quality. So I just assume that A and B are well measured. We know what they are, and we're finding this correlation statistically. But at the end of the day, if the data for A or B is unreliable for some reason, or it's sampled in a way that leads to bias, which will make precise, either at the end of lecture day or on Tuesday, then we can't really interpret this as a causal relationship. Yeah.
Another possible story is the story that you found with an instrumental variable that C affects A and U for B.
Yep. So yeah, instrumental variables are definitely something we're going to talk about later on in the course. And with instrumental variables, as you pointed out, there's a more complicated story. There's sort of a 2-step story. And that's something that's going to be important. We're going to kind of have a similar sort of layout in a month or so where we think about what the causal change would be with instruments. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So this is a great point. It's going to point toward our next discussion. You're trying to understand the mechanism. So if we're saying, there's this correlation between health and income, we've been sort of hypothesizing that, say, a weak public health system or underfunded hospitals could be part of the explanation. So we want to get data on that and say, if we really think it is, low income leading to bad care and bad care leading to poor health, well, let's measure each one of those steps. And maybe that'll give us enough to understand which of these channels is plausible. So that's going to point towards really what we're going to come to next, which is understanding the mechanisms. Okay? So let's assume we know the causality, and let's think about mechanisms. Let's assume for whatever reason we know A causes B. Poor health leads to low income. Why? What is the channel? Sometimes the channel is even more important to understand than the overall relationship. Because maybe, if we're thinking from the point of view of a public policymaker, knowing the overall relationship isn't enough. We want to know where policy should focus, and there could be totally different mechanisms with totally disparate implications for policy. So let's talk about this relationship between health and income. And let's imagine there are 2 theories. In theory 1, poor health affects income through channel X, we'll call it. And in theory 2, poor health, or the tropical disease burden, affects income through channel Z. Now, what are those channels? Well, it turns out there's a couple, in addition to Bloom and Sachs, there's another very famous paper in Development Economics that came out, that other paper about 12 years ago, that proposes a completely different channel in Bloom and Sachs for why Africa's tropical disease burden could lead to underdevelopment today. And these 2 theories, even though they both agree that Africa's tropical disease burden is going to lower income, have completely different implications for policy. And that's where the mechanism becomes very important, measuring and understanding the mechanisms. Let's talk through these stories. So the first story is the Bloom and Sachs story. Africa has a very high tropical disease burden because of its temperature and climate and the density of mosquitoes and all that, and that leads to low productivity, so people are sick too often, and lowers income. The second explanation is a totally different historical explanation. It says the following. Africa's tropical disease burden affected the nature of European colonialism and colonization of Africa relative to other parts of the world. And their claim is, because of the tropical disease burden, European settlement was basically impossible in most of sub-Saharan Africa. So these European imperialists said, well, the only way we can sort of do well by interacting with Africa, because we can't settle there, like the way we settled in North America with these British colonists or Spanish colonists in the Caribbean and South America, Portuguese colonists, settlers, is we're going to set up institutions that allow us to extract wealth. We're going to set up institutions that allow us to identify resources and just extract them. That's going to be the whole goal of our interaction with Africa. And to the extent that those institutions are persistent over time, in other words, the Europeans set up these really repressive, exploitative institutions, if they're persistent over time, then the newly independent African states will have inherited many of these institutions. Remember we talked about how for a couple decades after independence, Africa was very undemocratic. It was the least democratic region of the world. Could that lack of representative government and that the repressive nature of so many African regimes in the first few decades of independence be related to the fact that many of their institutions were inherited from these exploitative European imperialists? And if those institutions don't promote economic growth, but just promote resource extraction, they can contribute to low incomes today. So that's a much more intricate, convoluted, complex argument, but it's one that people have found interesting, and it's the hypothesis of this famous paper by Acemoglu, Johnson, and Robinson that came out in the American Economic Review in 2000. How many people have heard of this article? So about half the class or two-thirds of the class. This is the best cited paper in development economics over the last 20 years, just to give you a sense of how influential this argument is. Also, one of the most controversial, like all well-cited pieces of scholarship. We'll talk a little bit about that later on. But let me pause for a second. People see how these channels are totally disparate, but they both say tropical disease is leading to low income through these very different mechanisms, right? Any questions, especially from those who hadn't heard of this paper or read about this hypothesis? Yeah. So their argument is, well, the places European imperialists settled, like what is today North America, the U.S., Australia, Argentina, even South Africa, had very different institutions. So the English colonists in North America set up local representative governments, and yes, those were very narrow representative governments. Only Europeans could vote, only males, et cetera, only Christians initially, but they basically were the seeds of a much more democratic set of institutions, relative to the sorts of institutions that were set up in what was the Belgian Congo, say, where the Belgians set up institutions literally just extract rubber and minerals with no regard for local representative government at all. Yeah. They don't benefit at all from sick people. In fact, it would hurt the returns they would get on their imperialism, if we want to use that sort of language. But basically, because of the disease burden, European settlers, when they tried to move in initial attempts to sub-Saharan Africa, basically all died from yellow fever and malaria. So all that they did is establish very minimal presences and just set up institutions to extract resources. They didn't go and say, oh, Europeans come settle Africa the way they did North America. With some exceptions, some of the highland areas of East Africa, there were white settlers. Obviously, South Africa is the sort of great exception to all this, where there was tons of European settlement. But of course, the climate is very different there. It's more similar to a European climate, and Europeans did better in that climate. They didn't die when they moved there. That's their argument. I'm basically restating the argument. We'll talk about the kind of critiques of the argument in a couple minutes. Yeah. So this is what they do. They go back to the historical record and try to collect data on the mortality of early settlers in dozens of countries around the world. And they show that the countries where settlers died in large numbers when initial attempts were made to send missionaries, soldiers, settlers, etc., have much worse institutions today. That's how they try to quantify it. That's their. So the contribution of that paper in part was going through the historical data and trying to assemble this data on mortality, what they call settler mortality, and then showing that it correlates with all these later outcomes. That's their argument. I just gave a PhD lecture last week on all the critiques of this argument, so I'm holding back for now. But in a couple slides, we're going to get into it a little bit. And I encourage you to, and I'll give you a citation of like the paper that makes the strongest critiques of what everybody just calls AJR, Acemoglu, Johnson, Robinson, if you want to read more. There's another hand up. Yeah. Oh, for sure. So I think they don't make this argument that clearly, but other people that have worked in this literature make the following subtle distinction, and you may not like it, I'm not sure how much I like it, but their distinction is between understanding per capita income today versus understanding the well-being of people alive in 1700, 1600 when Europeans were going around the globe. So you make the perfect point. Because of disease, contact between Europeans and Native Americans led to the spread of all these European diseases that Native Americans didn't have any immunity for, killing some huge fraction of the Native American population. So even if this European settlement led to high per capita income later on, it was a disaster for humanity. And so AJR would say, yes, it may be a disaster for humanity, but we're studying per capita income today. So that's their focus. Yeah. Say that again, I didn't get the last part.
Essentially, these diseases are still very active as well. And so
Yeah. Yeah, so that's one of the critiques. So we talk about the critiques of AJR. One of the critiques is